Hey everybody, welcome to Azure Flash News. It is
3/13.
There it is. Now it's working. It's three.
Friday the 13th.
You gonna watch a scary movie tonight?
I watch scary movies every night. I'm looking for Dr. Sleep. That was a phenomenal book.
What?
Dr. Sleep. It's a sequel to The Shining, Stephen King. The book was amazing. I want to see if the movie even remotely lives up to the hype.
So the other thing that speaking of The Shining, the Minnesota Opera is doing an opera on The Shining next year.
No kidding.
No kidding. You'll have to go.
Yes. Oh gosh, yeah. Total Stephen King buff.
But the one thing we didn't say is that this is episode 88.
That is
Let's
correct.
mention it real quick.
Yes.
And it is March
88,
the 13th.
March the 13th. Friday the 13th. Yeah.
It's.
You would never know that we're facing a pandemic, given how beautiful it looks through the windows and there's traffic.
Yeah. I mean, so Build was just announced it's going to be virtual only, which that was kind of expecting that. It's in Seattle, so.
Yeah, but I mean, it's been a series of disappointments. It's been a week of disappointments, right? You had the NHL suspended, NBA suspended. Yeah. You had the NCAA tournaments basically canceled.
Baseball. MLS.
Yep. Soccer. I mean, it's
lots of stuff, man. You know what? It's more time to sit at home and build stuff in the cloud, maybe.
True that. Oh, we just so happen to know a few things that you might want to try.
Let's dive in. Let's see what's.
Let's do that. We've got an announcement around some policy stuff for ACR. A new capability, not a new capability. It was announced, but it's another option for migration.
Yes.
This is a new capability for ACR, Azure Container Registry.
Yeah.
And last but definitely not least, a GA announcement for a virtual network capability that I think is actually pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So let us jump right on in, right?
Orange, you ready? Let us jump in.
Orange, you ready? Fruits and veggies. And veggies.
All right. Let's. Hey, you know what I was thinking I might do? I was kind of wanting to plan some migration to some VMs.
Well, okay. So you want to plan some migrations from two VMs?
Sure.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about where you're migrating from.
On-prem. I mean, I got to close my data set.
Okay. So historically, I would tell you, is it a VMware virtual machine, or is it a Hyper-V virtual machine? Or
everybody runs VMware, Rick. You know.
Yeah,
this.
I know that. or I'm going to tell you about something new that we have: physical machine.
Oh, well, I definitely have some of those. I didn't know I could migrate those.
Well, now you can. Oh. Yes. Yep. Now, oh boy, that was kind of.
That was good. That was totally ad hoc.
Yeah. So we have an announcement. I shouldn't say. Oh, there's that clap. There's that clap.
Don't do that, Rick.
Well, it's a little.
Maybe it's a little bit better.
Obnoxious.
Yeah, we're using a different mic today.
Yeah. Oh, so FYI, we are using a new mic setup. If we'd love feedback, we had heard some back from some.
Well,
folks.
we don't want feedback.
No, not mic feedback.
But.
We would appreciate your input. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. But I feel like Jimmy Fallon. I mean,
I know, totally. Nice. Well, I feel like we're on the old timey radio show.
I know. We should do some cabaret or something.
What? No.
You know, like some songs from the 40s or something.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about something like drinking.
No.
Okay. So
anyway,
having said that,
I just did it.
I know. See, it's hard. Okay. Sorry. Oh, speaking of which, I did from our Azure Flash News, I direct messaged somebody out there. I'll keep your name anonymous, but you are the new official proud owner of a pair of Azure Cloud socks. I just need you to send me your
address.
Thank you. Your shipping information, so that I can get those out to you. So
you know who you are.
I can. Yeah, you know who you are. And if you don't pay attention to your Twitter direct messages, you should go and look at that, because you should have some.
You Twitter direct messaged him.
I did. Him.
Whoever it was.
It was
him.
Yeah,
okay.
I can go that far.
Okay.
So back to this announcement. We
digress.
So basically, plan migration of physical servers using Azure Migrate. So historically, you could do VMware and Hyper-V virtual machine assessments for migration to Azure. Okay. Yep. So this is an assessment only supported. The assessment only supported VMware and Hyper-V. What we've done is we made the announcement at Ignite that said now you can actually plan or do the assessment of the physical servers as well now. So regardless of what, if you're using bare metal, if you're virtualized Hyper-V, if you're virtualized with VMware, doesn't matter. This assessment tool will get you up and ready and prepared to do a migration to the cloud.
That's a relief.
It really is.
And remember, I don't know how many weeks ago was it that we got the announcement around Azure disks for sharing?
Oh yes, the shared disk announcement. So now for clusters, yes.
So now that physical machine that's on-prem that has that shared disk, not only can we support the disk, we can even
migrate it.
We can help you do the assessment, understand what's on it.
So so I mean, come on, how cool is that? I mean, you gotta admit that's cool. I mean, nerdy, not nerdy, doesn't matter. You gotta admit that's cool. So as you can see from this graph that's being presented right now, the Azure, this is obviously Contoso, right? So we've got a Contoso assessment, and you can see the Azure readiness, right? So you can see we've got 600, according to this documentation, we show 617 machines ready for Azure, 194 ready with conditions. We've got no machines that are not ready,
of course,
and then readiness of known 69 based on whatever the scenario was, or something was causing an issue there, right? And then it gives you your storage monthly cost estimate based on migrating these machines, disk sizes, disk utilization, etc. And then your monthly cost estimate, which rolls up storage and compute.
Okay.
So this actually gives you an estimate of the machines that you want to migrate and what it's actually going to cost you monthly to run these machines in Azure.
I'm going to want to point something out here. You'll notice here on the chart here, it says monthly cost estimate on the top right.
Yep.
And it's total of $47,000.
Yep.
And it's compute and storage. But then in addition, down on the left in the blue and
it's a breakout of
cyan, it's a breakout of the kind.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to point out that right here, this one right here, it's kind of blurry, but
no, it looks good on the screen.
I guess it looks pretty good over there. But it shows you what kind of disk. In other words, it's looking at the I/O.
Exactly, and it's prescribing standards HDDs.
Now, that is available.
And of course, there's a small slice of premium there.
Yeah, so they found some here that were
so this assessment tool is actually it's doing some pretty sophisticated things to monitor disk I/O and look at read write optimization and all that other stuff to ensure that you've got what did you do? Did you break it?
Oh, I got it back. Yeah, and so like really when you're talking about a VM migration, you're really talking about compute and storage, VMs and disks.
Yep.
And so it can really help you understand that. I mean, it's so valuable.
Well, and the cool thing is, so if we scroll up or scroll down, thank you, a little bit.
Way.
Yes, that way.
This way, keep it over here.
Not only are we showing you your on-prem assessment, but we're also telling you what SKUs you should be using.
Yep.
So again, based on the profile of that machine, you want to use this particular SKU. We've got a suggested obviously, the suggested tool is to use the Azure Migrate service, right? But it also talks about the operating system, the boot type, CPU utilization. So this is based on the assessment, but then it's also showing you the VM size that would be appropriate for that migration to start out with. And then, of course, you can always use Azure Advisor and Azure Monitor to right size and optimize your environment as you go.
Post-migration.
Post-migration.
Exactly. And in the Azure Migrate tool, it generally it gives you some options on how you want to size things. Like if you want to it'll look at the telemetry for a while and then kind of help you size it.
Yeah.
So, and then you can be more conservative and tell it to add a little bit more cores.
That's right. That's right. You can actually turn some of those dials to actually be more, like you said, more conservative. But the cool thing, I love this, the dependency analysis. So, and I'm a visual person, man. So this is really cool. So it's showing you this physical server with 18 processes that are running. So you see app service, you see health service, you see et cetera, right? But then you also see this front end. So it's basically, this is a physical machine and it's showing you the processes that are running, and the dependencies on the front coming in and going out. This is really cool.
It's really cool. And so you can see here that, now this machine may not know the names of these machines, but like it says, this physical server 01 is using, yeah, like app service, and then the line goes to whatever, port 1433.
Yep.
And
so
it
it's
doesn't,
obviously talking to a database.
yeah, and so, or here's port 389, which is 10.151.36.5. So you could actually go and figure out what that actually is,
Exactly.
which server that is. You're like, oh, it says it's LDAP, but which LDAP server? You can use the IP address to figure out which one it is.
Exactly. So basically, if you want to assess your physical servers, you can do it in 4 simple steps. Create an Azure Migrate project, okay, and then add the server assessment solution to the project. Set up Azure Migrate appliance, right, because that's what you're doing on-prem to start the discovery of your server, right? So to set up your discovery, you have to, the server names or IP addresses are required so that it knows the machine to go out, monitor and watch traffic and look disk IO, et cetera, et cetera. And then each appliance that you deploy will support discovery of up to 250 servers.
Okay. And this appliance, I think, if it's still the same, is basically a VM you download.
Correct. It's a virtual appliance. It's not necessarily a physical racked and stacked.
And so it should be relatively easy for you to get the machine downloaded and running.
And you can run them in parallel, by the way.
So you can have multiple machines.
X number of appliances, and it doesn't necessarily specify a limit here. But then once you've set up discovery, you create the assessments, and then you look at your assessment reports. And
which we saw at the top.
Yep, exactly. And then once the application dependency analysis use the dependency analysis features to create and refine server groups to phase your migration. Because if you scroll back up, this server dependency mapping, this is going to show you with this server, if you want to migrate this server, these are all things that you have to take into consideration. So you either need back to on-premise connectivity to interact with these servers, or as part of a server group, you want to migrate that particular group or instance of services or servers to Azure.
Right, and you might find that some of these, it's okay to leave them on-prem, and some of them you might say, no, port 135, this loc serve.
No way.
Like, there's no way.
Please we know what that 135 on your firewall. Please don't do that.
Yeah. So they might say this loc serve, whatever it is, it's location. It's got to go. It's got to go up there.
So it's obviously using DCOM or COM on what? DCOM,
is that what that is?
135. That's why. Yeah, that's a big no-no. Don't open up 135.
Distributed COM. Oh man.
I mean, it could be a couple different things, but typically 135 is a big no-no on a firewall because it's DCOM.
So don't do that.
Don't do that. So anyway,
Rick
super cool. Definitely, if you're thinking about migrating a physical machine or a group of machines, maybe you've got a server group that you want to migrate, this is a really easy, really simple way to assess the situation, get the reports. You can look at in depth, what machines are not suitable, why they're not suitable. It'll also recommend disk types. It'll recommend, you want a brain dead simple way to figure out what you're going to have to do to migrate. This is it right here. So please, if you haven't looked at it, or if you do have physical machines.
How much does this cost?
As far as I know, I think free.
I think it's free. So
I haven't seen a single price associated with this capability.
Yeah, pretty sure it's free. So this sort of what do you call this?
What?
This thing. This
picture. The server group.
The dependency tracking.
The
dependency tracking.
Yep. The dependency
usually
analysis.
That's pretty sophisticated, expensive software.
Yeah,
but you can
exactly.
Get
and we're saying, hey, do this, download this VM, run it, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm sorry, did I say no? Awesome.
Boom. Boom.
Okay. So this is not anticlimactic, but it's a little bit different type of announcement. So Azure Container Registry with built-in audit policies for Azure Policy is now in preview. Okay, so as you know, preview means it's a step before GA or general availability. And so what we're doing is we're giving you 3 built-in policies that we're planning on incorporating into ACR. So network, so audit policy to verify if private link is being used. Okay,
that makes sense.
Provide an audit policy that checks if the firewall is enabled and IP-based restrictions are applied.
Yep, that makes sense.
Because you don't want anybody to just be able to talk to that node or that container.
ACR.
And then data transfer. Provide an audit policy to verify if a customer managed key is used, right? Yep. And you've heard us say this before. We always encourage you to BYOK.
Yeah.
Don't use. Yes, you can use our keys for the data, and at rest encryption, that kind of stuff.
If you want to.
But if you want to. But I would rather, if let's say the government came to us and said,
we need your data.
You can have the data, it's encrypted, but you still got to talk to the customer because they have the keys.
And you know what we always say about BYOK? BYOK. BYOK. But so now if you want to apply an Azure policy around ACR, these 3 policies are built in, they're ready to go in Azure policy. You just go in there and say, I want to do this network one, fill in some parameters, Done. You don't have to define it all yourself.
No, exactly. So just another way to simplify the assessment and understanding of where you're not following best practices or where you may have potentially, I'll say, attack vectors, or again, just, you know, we're always trying to raise that security awareness and security bar. It's not just about knowing, because that's not enough. It's the remediation of what you know about that is really important. Yeah. So great capability. It is in preview. I don't know specifically which regions it's available in right now.
It should be available anywhere, I would think, knowing what I know about Azure policy. It should be available anywhere, because it's just a policy that you're implementing. And it's kind of funny to say it's in preview, because these are just kind of like policies.
I know, yeah, it's policy, but it's a little different because it's the container registry piece. Because this is built in Azure. These are built-in policies specific to ACR.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So it's going to look at your container registry, and it's going to basically
it's just going to help you ensure that you don't have it open up to the internet if you don't want to.
Yeah. So really important. Let's be honest, because public registries.
You don't want a public registry.
No, especially if
you want a private one.
Yeah, if you have IP that's specific to you, and it's in the context of containers that you have living in that registry, you certainly don't want it open to the world.
That's right.
All right. Very good. So here's another container registry, another announcement. I don't know why I'm on container. Apparently I'm on container registries today.
Keep them rolling.
So this is another preview capability. This was updated today, so this is exciting.
Hot off the press.
Public preview of managed keys for Azure Container Registry. So similar to the policy we just talked about, this capability enables customers to BYOK or BYOK. But I know, right? By using their own key stored in Key Vault, right, you can encrypt your images. Yeah. So this isn't necessary. I mean, this is a policy I would expect, not because we had talked about the data piece, but to me, this is also about your images shouldn't be just sitting in a registry unencrypted, right? You don't want them sitting out there in plain text, even if it's private, because it's private. A nefarious actor who compromises your internal infrastructure could potentially still get to that registry, depending on how you have it configured, and then now boom, you've got IP leak, right?
You know, the security guys, like, you know, we've had Matt Lunzer on the show before. Super
Doug
talented. Doug Splinter.
Heavy focus on security.
They say security in depth.
Absolutely.
I hear that a lot, and so it might be that you have your container registry blocked so that you can only get to it either from private link from inside of your virtual network, or blocked so that only your egress firewall can get to it, which is great.
Yeah.
But security in depth. Why don't we encrypt those images, and you can BYOK and put the key in the Key Vault, and it'll just happen.
It'll just happen. And the thing I like, it's interesting because I've been having some really interesting authentication conversations with customers lately. And to your point, you know, the reality of how we could compromise some of these things is very limited, because we do a lot of things in the Azure backplane and in the Azure management plane, as well as with Azure Security Center, to try and avoid these types of scenarios. Yeah. But what I tried to explain to the customer, what they got, I mean, they understood it right away, is, listen, I know these sound like alien abduction scenarios that I'm trying to present to you, but just assume, assume, like, for example, managed identities, even though you can't get at the private key, just assume somehow somebody got access to that.
Yep.
How do you limit your blast radius?
Right.
And the way you do that is by not using a user assigned managed identity that you keep reusing over and over and over and over and over again, right?
Right.
But so even if it sounds far fetched, just assume for a second somebody compromised that. How do you limit that blast radius? How do you limit the exposure? And these are things that, you know, you're covered. Yep. Now you just don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. So if you're using this key in Key Vault to encrypt this stuff, you know, once again, it's your key, your encryption,
and that's
you
really
get to
important.
control. You get to control the key.
Yeah.
So
really important. Absolutely. So networking,
hey,
you know.
Oh, actually, that's not the article. Although we can flip to it pretty
that's
quickly.
A better. I like that. Actually, I was
just gonna say, what is virtual network NAT?
Well, first of all, I will tell you the announcement is that it's generally available.
Yes.
But now, having said that, what is generally available? Well, so network address translation.
Yes.
Correct. So talk to me, Goose.
So, do you guys remember back in the day when we first started getting our very first Wi-Fi routers, and you had to set up another network?
And you had dual natting.
And you had to put a hole. You had to put a hole in the firewall so that you could get Doom.
Yep. Yes.
To
yes.
port forward.
Yes.
Okay. So having that secondary network where everything behind this device has its own network, and everything on the other side of that device doesn't know about your internal network. The secondary network, the translation of one address to the other, is what NAT is. And we now have a generally available capability where you can turn on network NAT for your virtual network. So in other words, what it means is you get a known outbound IP address for your virtual machines when they go through this virtual network NAT.
Yep, exactly. So the cool thing is you can configure it for one or more subnets, but it's also on-demand connectivity, right? So you can provide, by turning this on and turning it off, you can basically say, oh, no more, or, oh, So it's like least privileges, short time to live credentialing. I mean, if you follow that prescriptive pattern on really kind of de-scoping, again, least privilege, just-in-time access, short time to live, and now there's another switch that we can flip that's really, again, limited time outbound to the internet is going to be exposed, but I want to shut this off like immediately, right? So the cool thing is it's on demand outbound to internet without pre-allocation, right? So you don't have to finagle certain things there. It is fully managed and highly resilient, so it's not something you have to worry about. We take care of that. So you can see in the image depicted on the screen there, you can see you've got subnet 1, subnet 2, but then you see the NAT layer, right? So the NAT is really what translates to the public IP address.
That's right.
So once you shut that off, there's no network address translation that points to that public IP, so you basically lose access to anything that's going outside of.
So in other words, and you can kind of do the same sort of thing with something like Azure Firewall, where you direct all of your traffic through it. Of course. So this is in some ways a different option.
Or complementary.
Yeah, and so if you have VMs that don't need to go through a firewall, you don't want to route the traffic through there. But you want to provide a little bit more security. Then you don't want to put a public IP on it. You don't want to do that. But you also don't want to just if you don't want to just go through our regular NAT layer, then you can use this instead. So.
Absolutely. The cool thing too, though, additional configurable idle timeouts, right? You can have one or more static IP addresses for scale. TCP reset for unrecognized connections. I like that. Kill them, get rid of them.
That's right.
Multi-dimensional metrics and alerts in Azure monitors could pretty slick. So that's nice because if you have this enabled, you still want to have some monitoring and visibility into what's going on. Oh, somebody flipped the switch. It's been running for this amount of time, or we're seeing this amount of data movement, et cetera, et cetera. So you can set thresholds and you can set alerts, which is really cool. Zone isolation for availability zones. So you may only want to run it in one zone of the 3. Let's say you've got servers spread across 3 different zones, but you only want access to one server.
You do it.
You can isolate it. I mean, just super cool. And oh, by the way, it's available in all Azure public cloud regions. You're not scoped to ring 1, ring 2. You basically, this is now that it's GA, you have it across the board for your VNet.
And what this means you don't have it in is government.
Correct.
Government regions we're not announcing at this time, and I think we still do have some sovereign regions like China. Do we still have Germany?
No. We're moving out of Germany. So Germany, no, not even France. So that we do. So let me restate that. We have paired geo-redundant regions there, but they're not necessarily operated by the sovereign state like they are in China.
They're, in other words, they are run under this public Azure moniker.
And to that point, for those of you that don't know, when we originally did our deployments into Germany, we actually worked with Deutsche Telco to provision our data centers, but it was essentially in it was actually theirs because of their requirements. We've since gained enough certifications and attestations where we were able to actually get off of their backplane and actually deploy our own regions now in Germany. And same thing for France. Because that was, I think, Orange Telco that we were working with in France.
So just be aware that there are some regions that would not be considered Azure public regions, like China for sure.
China.
So anyway. Very cool stuff.
Super exciting. Some good announcements.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting to see these sort of what I would call these are not headliner announcements. And what I mean by that is that because they're not headliner announcements, it's not like a brand new service.
Oh,
not
right,
like a brand
I know.
new,
Right,
like,
right.
like we have had some lately, like Synapse.
Yeah.
A brand new
Arc.
service that's
Yeah.
coming, Azure Arc, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that we're having more and more of these announcements means that we're really filling out the portfolio around the use cases, making it very rich for what you need to get done.
Absolutely.
And being able to support a scenario like this, like, you know, I don't want to use Azure Firewall. I just want to manage NAT.
Exactly.
It's just very rich. The kind of the
and you know what
richness
this means? It means we're listening to you.
That's right. Somebody asked for this. A bunch of people asked for it.
We don't. Yeah, we don't just. I mean, we build. Yes, in the beginning, when we build a new service, we will build things, aspects of that service that we think people want. But the evolution of that service is typically driven by input from the customers.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's what preview is about.
Exactly.
Is to say, we know there's something here. Let's put it out in preview and see what kind of feedback we get. Because talking about it isn't nearly as good as saying, here is the service. Let us know how it works. Let us know where it doesn't work for you. So
yeah, absolutely. No, so that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah,
good stuff.
And I'm going to drop a little teaser. I know in the next couple of weeks we're going to have some guest hosts. We are going to have Jesse Morasic, who's a premier field engineer, talking about some policy work that he's done.
That guy?
I know, right?
I like Jesse.
That guy.
Jesse, if you're listening,
awesome dude.
I like
awesome dude. We're going to try and get a couple other hosts that have talked about, for example, you mentioned Matt Lunzer.
Yeah.
He's actually played out a really interesting scenario around Azure Front Door with an application gateway. Was it a gateway or APIM? No, it was APIM.
No, it was App Gateway.
Oh, Gateway? Okay.
It was App
and
Gateway.
Then fronting some web apps and making that work all within the context of www.yourvanityurl.com.
And HTTPS.
And HTTPS and certs and all that other stuff. So really, really cool. I mean, it seems like it's something that should be a no-brainer, but there's a few caveats there. He's also worked on a few things like with conditional forwarding and some other stuff as well. So and that was related to a different topic.
That was related to private link.
Private link, thank you.
Yeah.
So we've got some really cool, I think, I'll call it whiteboarding sessions coming up that if you get into that kind of thing, I think this is going to be really interesting, especially the whiteboarding session around private link, because a lot of what we did was we scoured the documentation to figure out how to specifically make this work. And I'll be honest with you, it was a significant amount of work and research to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think it's because we're really getting to the point now where we have all of these different solutions across the platform, and it's really time for us, especially as CSAs, to really help you understand how to bring it all together. So
absolutely,
we've got some
good stuff coming.
Yeah, good
so
stuff.
Just a little teaser there. And again, I'm just a friendly reminder. If I direct messaged you, I believe your name is Robert. I won't mention any last names because but please get back to me with your mailing address so we can get that the Azure Socks out to you. Congratulations on that. Mark, if anybody has any questions today around announcements, what do they need to do to get a hold of you?
You can email me, mgarner@microsoft.com, which is probably the best way to get me. Please feel free to email me. Or you can catch me on Twitter @mgarner, would be fine. And Rick, what about you?
Rick, WEY@microsoft.com via email, or if you prefer, you can direct message. I take the DMs for our Twitter handle @AzureFlashNews. Also, don't forget, if you're watching us via YouTube or Stitcher or iTunes, Google, whatever it is, please give us a good rating. And if there's something you think we can improve upon, we're always interested in feedback.
Tweet us.
Yeah, please tweet us. I'm not a proud man, so feel free to criticism and compliments are always welcome.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So per the usual, thank you to the MTC. Thank you to Emily Mackmiller for helping us produce this show.
Yes.
Couldn't do it without you guys. And of course, thank you, audience, for listening in or tuning in as time permits to keep up with Azure. We appreciate it, and we share your passion. So with that,
stay safe.
Stay safe. That's right.
Take care of yourself.
Stay healthy.
Things are changing.
Keep your fingers on the keyboard, but let's make sure we keep our head in the corona-free cloud.
That's right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. See ya.